Welcome. My name is Paul Cox and I'm chair of Seacology. I really am grateful for you to come out tonight for our annual Seacology Prize Ceremony, in which we will honor Cynthia Ong. I think you're going to really enjoy it. I wanted to tell you, Cynthia is actually the 34th recipient of the Seacology Prize. This is the 34th. And I think she's going to be the best yet. But by way of introduction, I want to tell you about our first Seacology Prize winner, a Samoan chief by the name of Ulu Taufa'asasina. We were on the island of Savaii, a remote island in Samoa. We had just finished raising the funds with Ken Murdoch's help and, to build the Falealupo School to protect their 15,000 hectare rainforest. In so many ways, that was really Seacology's origin, was building that little school. So I had a postdoc, Thomas Elmquist from Sweden. Thomas said, well, is there something else we could do? Is there another forest? And I said, well, you know, over on the other side of the island, right by where all the logging trucks come in, is really a beautiful forest, Tafu. He said, well, let's go. So I grabbed a couple of chiefs from Falealupo, our village. We drove about the 2.5-hour drive it takes to get to Tafua. We went into this little village. I'd never been to it before. And it turned out as we arrived, the villagers were all gathered around their big thatched meeting hut. They were meeting, and we walked in, and as is Samoan custom, they served us food. And I noticed that the chiefs there weren't eating, and I whispered to our chief Fuiono Sinio, who Dwayne knew. I said, why aren't they eating? He said, they're too poor. Wow. So we finished the meal, and then they said, well, why are you here? And I said in Samoan, I said, well, we understand that there's pressure on your rainforest. We're here to help however we can. We'd like to help you protect your rainforest. And at that moment, all the villagers, and there were maybe, 100, 125 people, both inside and outside the hut, some started weeping. Some just looked stunned. I'd never seen Samoans react this way. They were completely shocked. And the head chief was a guy named Ulu Taufa'asasina. So he was very gracious, and he explained to us that he had promised his father, who was the previous high chief, on his father's deathbed, that he would do anything he could to protect this forest. But there was intense pressure because it was so close to the wharf, so close to the logging operation. Well, I still was so puzzled by the way they reacted. We later found out, after we got to know Ulu, that he had convened the village to tell them about a dream he'd had the night before. He said he'd been in the forest and it was under assault, and he felt so terrible that he could not keep his promise to his father that he made on his father's deathbed, that he'd protect the forest. And he didn't know what to do. And then in his dream, 2 white birds flew down from the jungle, landed on his shoulders and said, we're here to help you protect the forest. Let us know what we can do. Well, those are the words I said. And so everybody in this village is flipping out. And that was the second school that we'd built. And then, of course, word spread, and we needed to create a foundation, a not-for-profit, to fund this. So we created Seacology. But Ulu was such a tremendous soul, and he had protected that forest. And so we held the first Seacology Prize Ceremony, and Ken was there. It was in my living room, and he was there. It was January. He's wearing a lava and his flip-flops and a T-shirt, and he gave this beautiful oration. He couldn't speak English, but he gave a beautiful oration that I translated, and about the importance of protecting rainforest, how precious it is. And I realized that these indigenous people, where we see resource, they see sacredness. To them, the forest and the coral reefs have a religious, a spiritual value to them, like you'd see at a synagogue or a temple anyway. So Ulu Taufa Assassina was our very first Seacology Prize winner because we thought it's important to recognize Indigenous folks, islanders, who've spent their life trying to protect both the culture and the environment of these precious islands. So I'm so grateful that you're here tonight, and I'm so grateful so many of you have joined with us in supporting this cause. And to explain a little bit more about what Seacology is doing, I'd like to turn the time to our Executive Director, Dwayne Silverstein.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks to all of you for coming out in the rain. We know people in the Bay Area don't leave their houses generally when it's raining, so thanks for that extra effort. And so we use this is our really one major public event of the year, so we use it kind of as a report to our fans and whatever to show a little bit of what we've done during the last year. So I will start with a map that shows where we're at around the world. We have funded 458 projects in 73 countries, preserved almost 1.6 million acres of threatened rainforests, coral reefs, mangroves, etc. And we've done it with one of the smallest staffs of any international environmental organization I know. What I'm going to talk about now is just two of our major nationwide initiatives. The first one is called Play for the Mangroves. And as Paul intimated, the core sentiment behind Seacology, the raison d'etre, if you want to say that, is that we like to do these win-win trade-offs. We will give an island village something they want and need and couldn't otherwise afford in exchange for them making a pledge to protect their environment. And so that philosophy is working so well, we decided to try an experiment to use that win-win with sports. And Play for the Mangroves involves providing needed equipment, uniforms, training, etc., to underprivileged kids on islands in exchange for them doing something on behalf of the mangroves, such as replanting or cleanups, etc. And the project, the initiative started in the Dominican Republic about 3 years ago, and it's going great. We are in the DR. And 2 years ago, we expanded to the Philippines. And you can see how enthusiastic these kids are, and they are everywhere we do this. And then just a few weeks ago, I was in Jamaica, where we started our third expansion. And if you look carefully, you could see me in a Where's Waldo kind of position there, hiding amongst the kids. But there were about 75 kids, not counting myself. And it's off to a fantastic start. And just a few months ago, well, let me take a step back. There's an organization called the Green Sports Alliance that consists a lot of professional sports teams, stadia, etc. And these companies care about the environment. And they have an annual prize for the project with the most important community impact award. And we won it this year. And that's Ismael Diaz, the person who runs that project. They're accepting it. I'm going to take a little detour here because I'm talking about prizes, and after all, we are here to award a prize to Cynthia. But Seacology has won an incredible number of prestigious international prizes, way beyond what one would expect with our size. Last year, we won the $250,000 Lippman Prize, and we were only the second winner in 20 years from the United States. We've also in the past, in fact, Paul and I personally were in Monaco to accept a prize from the Prince Albert II of Monaco for, get this, being the most innovative nonprofit in the world in any field. And you can't apply for that prize. So I was literally hiking on a mountain in Mexico when I got a call from somebody who identified himself as Count de Tocqueville. Okay, we've got a lot of history students who remember the original Count de Tocqueville from the Civil War, from the Revolution. And I thought it was my brother or somebody else yanking my chain, but no, it was the great-great-great-great-great-grandnephew of Count de Tocqueville, who had a partnership with Prince Albert II, calling to say that Seacology won this incredible award. We have won an award from the United Nations for our work on climate change. We have also been nominated, believe it or not, it's timely to say this, for the Nobel Peace Prize, little old Seacology, yeah. And the list goes on and on. I don't want to bore you, but we're very proud of that, of those awards. So I don't want it to be just me or the staff bragging about Play for the Mangroves. So what happens is we attracted the attention of some very top-notch economists from MIT and the University of Oregon, and they went out and fundraised themselves. We didn't provide a dime for this, to do an independent study that took several years and cost over $200,000. And they, again, on their own volition, we had nothing to do with this, came up with a 3-minute animated video describing the study and the results of them. So just bear with me while we show that.
Estos son los manglares dominicanos, un milagro de la naturaleza. ¿Por qué son tan valiosos? Porque son capaces de reducir los daños ambientales y de dar refugio a flora y fauna. Lamentablemente, en los últimos 30 años, el mundo ha perdido muchos manglares. Por eso, su cuidado es trascendental. ¿Y cómo lograrlo? En Seacology y el Grupo Aragua nos preguntamos, ¿cómo podemos cambiar esto? ¿Cómo involucramos a la gente en el cuidado de sus manglares? Así nació un proyecto al que llamamos Jugar para los Manglares. Un programa de educación ambiental sobre los manglares que podría cambiar la forma en que los niños y sus padres piensan sobre ellos. ¿Qué hicimos? Primero, nos aliamos con clubes deportivos para que nos ayuden a llegar a los jóvenes. Luego, creamos para ello un taller de educación ambiental sobre los manglares. ¿Qué queríamos saber? Si la educación realmente puede cambiar actitudes y comportamientos ambientales. ¿Puede los adolescentes ayudar? Cada grupo recibió uno o varios talleres distintos. A quienes les tocó aprender sobre los manglares vivieron una experiencia única con la naturaleza. Visitaron un manglar y ayudaron incluso a que estos estén más saludables. Y luego, pues lo comparamos. Necesitábamos saber cómo el taller influyó en ello. ¿Qué preguntamos? Si a la gente le preocupaba el medio ambiente, qué sabían sobre los manglares y lo que sentían por ellos, qué acciones ambientales ellos realizan. Visitamos clubes en muchos municipios costeros del país y en total hablamos con más de 700 niños y alrededor de 600 padres. ¿Y cuáles fueron los resultados? Quienes participaron en el taller sobre los manglares comprendieron mejor sus beneficios ecológicos. Todos pasaron de ver a los manglares como obstáculos a verlos como recursos naturales valiosos para el planeta. Las niñas lograron grandes avances en el conocimiento sobre los manglares, mientras que los niños mostraron mejoras más amplias en las actitudes ambientales. El impacto fue tan grande que los padres de los participantes aumentaron su apoyo a la conservación y adoptaron comportamientos más respetuosos hacia el medio ambiente. Y otros jóvenes de los mismos clubes que no llevaron el taller tuvieron visiones más positivas hacia los manglares. Con este conocimiento, ahora podemos expandir los cuidados que nuestros manglares necesitan y podemos decir que esas raíces milagrosas que se enredan entre sí, que protegen nuestras tierras de huracanes y que son refugios de flora y fauna, ahora tienen un nuevo aliado, la juventud dominicana.
When we started Play for the Mangroves, it it was our hope. I'll let the music stop. Okay. It was our hope that, or the reason we planned to have the kids do these things in the mangroves, the plantings, the cleanups, et cetera, was not for the environmental benefit, though that, of course, is an important part, but is to get them to become ambassadors for the mangroves. And as this study showed, not only did the kids become ambassadors for the mangroves, but so did their fellow students who didn't participate, so did their teachers, and so did their parents. So this has proved to be a very effective force. And speaking of mangroves, our first two national level initiatives in Sri Lanka and then in the Dominican Republic had to do with mangroves. And we'd like to think that Seacology played a teeny little part in making the plight of mangroves better known around the world. When we started, you know, people would say, isn't mangrove a juicy fruit from the tropics? No, that's not mangroves. But now nobody says that. So it's not solely Seacology, but we like to think we put our thumb on the scale in favor of mangroves. So the board in the last year or two was looking, what can we do to help with another endangered and unknown ecosystem? And we all came up with the same idea, let's do something for seagrass. Now, seagrass are actually flowering plants that grow in the sea. They sequester more carbon than just about any other ecosystem in the world. And let me put that in perspective for you. Per hectare, seagrass sequesters 15 times more carbon than a hectare of the Amazon rainforest. So they're a great yet unknown tool to fight global warming. They're also a habitat for a lot of marine creatures. Their roots also get embedded in the seafloor and stabilize it and stabilize beaches and coasts. And also the plants themselves really purify the water, then take out contamination. So they're incredibly valuable. However, nobody's heard of them, almost nobody, because you can't see them for the most part. They're underwater, of course. So we said, okay, that just sounds right up our alley. So we're starting the first national level initiative in the world to educate the public about seagrass, and we're doing it in Greece. And our hope is we will leverage this, as we did with our other national initiatives, to have a worldwide impact. And this initiative will involve education for the kids in and outside the classroom. It involves working with the tourism industry and working with the fishing community, a lot of social media, and of course some high tech as well. We're going to be deploying underwater and above water drones as well to help map these seagrass. Right now, Greece does not have good regulations prohibiting dropping anchors on seagrass, which is the main threat to seagrass around the world. There are a lot of others as well. And we're hoping by the end of this project that will change. So just here's some kids in our little pilot project with seagrass, and here's some cleanups as well. And now it's my privilege to introduce our terrific program manager, Mary Randolph, who will talk about some of our other win-win projects. Mary?
Okay, so Seacology has a lot of projects going on at one time. We probably have 60 or 70 active projects. I'm not going to talk about them all. Though I could, but we picked out about half a dozen to tell you about, so just get a flavor of what's been going on around the world and Seacology projects for the last year or so. We're going to start with this one in Guatemala, which is all about the sea turtles. There are 3 species of sea turtles that nest on the beaches of this island: the hawksbill green and the giant leatherbacks. The problem here is that these are for the most part, black sand beaches. And as temperatures go up globally, the sand gets so hot that it's too hot for some of these eggs. So you really need to move them to a hatchery where you can shade them and it's cool enough for them to hatch. So we're working with the communities there. The communities have committed to protecting these turtles and the eggs, and they are the ones who are doing the enormous labor of moving those eggs right to the hatchery. So Seacology has supported the hatchery, which is really a fairly simple building, but the people of the community are finding these eggs, transporting them carefully so they can hatch. And in return, we have tried to help some of the food insecurity issues on the island. For example, there's a chicken raising program, so people are getting help and animals so they can have a food source that can go on, they can raise. And also we made improvements to a school down there that really needed it. There's my thing. And so if you've ever gotten to, yeah, it's just as cute as it looks. It's so fun when you let them go. So they had an event a couple of weeks ago, and it was, community outreach is essential. You saw it from that animated video about the Dominican, right? You need to get community buy-in or things are not gonna work. So there's been education here and outreach to the people to make the conservation a symbol of island pride. We protect our turtles. It's a symbol of our island, and it's really working. This project is in Madagascar, and we are always so happy when we can do a good project in Madagascar. It sort of exemplifies the reason that Seacology just works on islands. Madagascar, big island, something like 90% of all the plants and animal species on Madagascar don't occur anywhere else in the world. So if they're lost there, they are lost to the world forever. And they are under a great threat because it's hard to make a living in Madagascar. People are under a lot of pressure. They cut down forests for agriculture. They poach animals because they need to feed their families. So if we can do a win-win project there, it has great environmental and social outcomes. This project is kind of protecting an island within an island. The community is protecting a really big area of primary forest on the eastern part of Madagascar, and it's at elevation, and so it's got different species in it, including 10 species of lemurs, 2 of which are critically endangered, a bunch of other endangered species up there. So they have committed to protect this forest. They patrol it, they keep people out, so animals aren't poached, trees aren't cut. And we're doing a couple of things to help the community in return for their support in this conservation. One is helping with coffee cultivation, which is traditional in this area of Madagascar, but they're getting help about how to do it in a better way, more profitable way, more sustainable way. You put other plants in with the coffee, some organic fertilizer, they're getting some expert help. But the main thing that they're getting is a secondary school. And it's probably hard for us to understand how life-changing that can be in a place like this. But in rural Madagascar, about 30% of the kids finish primary school. That's it. And they may not have a secondary school to go to. And that just perpetuates the cycle, right? If you don't have education, you don't have opportunities, you may feel like you have to cut down that forest for slash and burn agriculture because that's all you know. But this is what the community wanted. It will serve kids from 4 different villages. And they're very excited about that. And so am I. This project is from Borneo. We're going to hear a lot about Borneo later. In some ways, it's like Madagascar in that it's an island with a tremendous amount of unique species that have evolved there. So we love to do projects there. And it's also like Madagascar in that there's a lot of threats to the environment. There are always logging companies who want to come in and take the trees. There are always oil palm companies who want to come in and clear things out and make an oil palm plantation. So this project is protecting another large area. It's more than 1,000 acres of forest. And this is a watershed. In Borneo, there's a lot of mountains, hills, a lot of rushing streams, and that makes it really good for microhydro. So this is a village that would never be on the grid. It's far away from that. That's not going to happen. But they can have clean, sustainable electricity with microhydro. You don't have to build a dam. All you do is take some of the water in a pipe and you run it through a little powerhouse, and you can provide electricity for a whole village. The people here grow pineapples. This is letting the women who do that freeze them, dry them, and expand their livelihood. And we have wonderful partners in Borneo who've done a lot of projects like this. And we have microhydro projects that are more than 20 years old that are still going great there. So this community has worked with our nonprofit partners. They know how to run the machinery. They know how to keep it going. They have a little committee that sets a user fee. So that money goes into a pot for maintenance. So it's designed to be self-sustaining. And it gives the community yet another reason to protect that watershed, because if you don't have a healthy forest, you're not going to have healthy streams that they need for their electricity. The Sundarbans, you might have heard of. It's the largest mangrove forest in the world, tens of thousands of acres. I think 32 species of mangroves. It's absolutely teeming with wildlife. There are royal Bengal tigers and crocodiles and hundreds of species of birds. It spans the coast of both India and Bangladesh. This village is in Bangladesh. They say that the maps are never right of the Sundarbans because the water is changing everything all the time and making the islands different. And I'm sure that's even more true now with climate change. So it's a region that faces a lot of challenges. We're working with a village on the Dangmari River where there are 2 species of freshwater dolphins, both of which are endangered. This guy is a Irrawaddy dolphin. They kind of always look like they're smiling. And then there's another species called the Ganges river dolphin that's almost blind and hunts by echolocation. So it's so interesting, right? And they're both threatened. And one of the main threats to these species is dangerous fishing practices. So people have used poison, they've used fine gauge nets that scoop up all the prey that the dolphins need. And also sometimes the dolphins get trapped and drown. So this village that we're working with, and we have a wonderful local NGO who's really been involved with these communities for a long time. They have banned those destructive fishing methods. So that's really going to help the whole ecosystem, not just the dolphins. And you saw earlier in that little film about the Dominican how important it is to get community buy-in and get the kids knowing what's going on, the adults. Our nonprofit partner there has been doing that, and they did kind of a mini version of what Dwayne described of the before and after survey. And it showed a huge increase in people's understanding of how everything is connected and why these measures are important. So it's really nice to see that. Again, you really need that community buy-in, which we seem to really have here. Seacology is supporting that, and also a whole bunch of little interventions that will just make everyday life there better, especially for the women. Better cooking stoves, solar lamps, water purification, and storage, because of course the water there is very brackish, a lot of it. So a whole bunch of things, again, in a place where it's hard to make a living. People don't have access to a lot of basic things that we might take for granted. So we're really happy to get that project going. We have a lot of projects in Fiji, of course, beautiful Fiji with its wonderful islands. And this project on Mali Island is at the top of Vanuatu, and it's near something called the Great Sea Reef, which is this amazing, it's one of the longest barrier reefs in the world. It's beautiful, beautiful coral, lots of animals. And so we did a project there that wrapped up a few months ago. This community approached us because we had done another project nearby. And so we love that because you get synergies when in the same area, you can protect a lot. So they are protecting a marine area, a mangrove area, and they're also planting trees up in the hills in the forest. And they invited a group of Seacology folks, a bunch of whom are here tonight, to visit Mali, and we got to tour the protected areas, and then we got to go to the official opening of the school. They waited to use the school until we got there, even though we said, no, please, use the school. They had been saving for 20 years to build a school, and they had no way of raising money. They had been doing raffles of groceries, and they really, they just couldn't do it on their own, but they really wanted to have a better future for their kids. And so we were happy to finance the building of a new primary school. Just a little video here. You can see that it's just lush mangroves all around the island. It's very beautiful there. And you can get a little flavor of the reef as well. They tore down the old school in one day. Here's the new school and some of the kids who were going there. We were so honored, before we even got to the island, they came out, representatives of the village met us. They presented us with a whale's tooth, which is an incredibly high honor. in Fiji, and we were so touched and honored by this. It was a wonderful ceremony. The whole day was wonderful. There was dancing and kava and singing and immense amounts of food and a lot of laughter. And I think someone who was on the trip was mentioning the ribbon cutting, that this sent such a powerful message to the kids of this village that your education is so important and our culture is so important. We were really privileged to take part in these traditional celebrations that they had. And that part of that culture is preserving the environment. They're just absolutely entwined. You cannot separate them. And so we were very honored to be there. We have a lot of projects in the Philippines as well, of course. It's a nation of islands. This one, they are preserving a big marine area, but it's got seagrass and coral and mangroves. So it's kind of the Seacology hat trick. And they just wanted support to build a watchtower so they can keep an eye on that area, because with the watchtower they can see in and make sure no one's coming in to fish illegally, violate any of the rules. And they also wanted an ecotourism initiative, because this is another area where it's just kind of hard to make a living. Soon after this project was approved, there was a typhoon, and then not too far away, a volcano erupted, and they still finished on time and on budget, just saying. And the ecotourism, that word gets tossed around a lot. For us, what's important is that it's based on local culture and wildlife, that the people of the villages are in charge. It's not some big hotel coming in and hiring them, and that the benefits stay in the community. And this one ticks all those boxes. So they got kayaks and some floating cottages for visitors. There are tons of birds there. Our field rep, Ferdy Marcello, went and did a kayak tour and saw lots of birds. Also the big fruit bats called flying foxes are there. So it has real potential for visitors to come. So we're really happy. We hope this one goes very well. The last project I'm going to tell you about is in Turkey, and it's a really different kind of project for Seacology, and we're really happy with the way it's going. So the background is that with rising ocean temperatures, a lot of invasive fish species have come through the Suez Canal into the Eastern Mediterranean. And chief among them is the lionfish, which is this very beautiful fish that eats everything. It has no natural predators there, right? So it's just creating havoc. And the numbers have gone up tremendously just in a few years. So nobody really has known what to do. So it's an environmental disaster. It's also a disaster for the small scale fishermen there who go out in these little boats. Suddenly 30 or 40% of their catch is lionfish. And what do they do with it? They can't sell it. They can't find native fish. They're having to go out farther to look for native fish. There are fewer of them. So what do? The nonprofit that we're working with in Turkey came up with the idea of creating a market for lionfish, because they're not only beautiful, it turns out they're tasty as well. So they worked with the restaurants and fish markets and showed people, they had a big festival, a lionfish kind of food festival, showed people that this is great and people will like it. So now they have succeeded so well that there's not enough. they're like, catch more. So they're getting more fishermen involved in this. They've had inquiries from a high-end restaurant in London that wants to have, lionfish night, which we endorse. So if you come across it on the menu, please give it a try. We think it's going to work well. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Dwayne.
Thank you, Mary. Again, that's just a small fraction of the projects we've undertaken in the last year. And now I want to talk briefly about Seacology trips. We run a handful of trips per year. They're really friend-raising trips rather than fundraising trips. And we don't really make a profit on any one of the trips, but very often people who come on the trips are so taken by what we do and the village visits, et cetera, that they do become friends for life. So our next trip is February 23rd to March 2nd to the Dominican Republic. It'll involve a bit of kayaking and a bit of whale watching and visits to at least 2 Seacology projects. And as I said, we don't make money on the trips per se. Even having said that, this is one of the least expensive trips we've ever run. So if you're interested in that, please get in touch with Max at max@seacology.org, or Max is here today. And there are just a small handful of vacancies left, but you might be wanting to contact Max about that. Then in late September of 2026, we will be going to the Center of Marine Biodiversity in Mosul in Raja Ampat, and we'll be staying at the Mosul Resort, which for my money is the best snorkel and diving resort in the entire world. It's so popular that we had to make reservations, even though we have a very close relationship with them and we've supported some of their projects 3 years in advance to get this space. So the invitations have not gone out yet. They will go out in a month, and this is suitable for both snorkelers and divers. And these are both in the planning stage, but we will likely be running trips to Greece to see our national initiative, and to Croatia, where we launched our first projects in the last year, sometime in 2026. So stay tuned for information about that. Okay, and now I want to thank two groups of people. The first is our field representatives. Our field representatives work very part-time out of their own homes and offices, and they're really the eyes and ears. We often get the question, how do we find new Seacology projects? And there are a variety of ways, but the main way is through our field representatives. And one thing I really want to call your attention to, between the field reps and the directors of our Play for the Mangrove project, we have 30 people in those roles, again, very part-time, and only 3 of them, I'm happy to say, are white males. And you won't find that duplicated in another international environmental organization, I can guarantee that. And lastly, but not least, all this is made possible by our wonderful staff, and I'd like the staff members who are here to please stand and be acknowledged for their great work, so don't be shy. So we're doing all this with the merest fraction of the staff size of the environmental organizations you've probably heard of. And now moving on, I really want to introduce, I'm really happy to introduce Ken Murdoch. Ken, as you've heard, is the co-founder of Seacology and is also the underwriter of the Seacology Prize. And when I say underwriter, I don't just mean the stipend that comes with the prize, but the rental of this place, the food, you name it, Ken's underwritten it. He's so dedicated that I saw him with an apron earlier today baking some of the cookies we're going to feature later. So you may not want to eat the cookies. No. Anyway, Ken is even though Ken is here, and you will see him to award the prize to our recipient. But at first, he's going to come talk to us through mid-technology. So watch the screen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us to honor the recipient of the 2025 Seacology Prize, Cynthia Ong. This is the 34th consecutive year that Seacology has given the Seacology Prize to an exceptional island conservationist. Over the years, we have honored islanders from 20 different countries. Each of these conservation leaders has a unique story. Some have saved priceless forest or vibrant coral reefs. Some have helped their fellow islanders gain recognition as stewards of their ancestral land. This year's recipient, Cynthia Ong, has had remarkable success in helping conserve habitats and cultures of her home island of Borneo. She has worked both to block reckless growth and to promote sustainable development that honors indigenous communities. To many Westerners, Borneo sounds somewhat remote and mysterious, but it's true that Borneo is special. It's chock full of plants and animals that live nowhere else on Earth. It is also full of people who, like people everywhere, want and deserve a voice in their destiny. Borneo's indigenous communities want to protect their traditions, which are closely tied to the island's forest and rivers. They want to pass their vibrant culture and healthy environment to future generations. Cynthia has dedicated her life to turning those hopes into reality. My own deep connection with islands comes from the years I was fortunate enough to live in the islands of Samoa. Several of my ancestors also lived in that beautiful part of the world as far back as 1900 and cared deeply about its people, islands, and environments. I am honored to underwrite the Seacology Prize in memory of my mother, Lalavi Fish Murdoch. Tonight, we award the 2025 Seacology Prize to Cynthia Ong for the remarkable impact of her work to protect the environments and cultures of Borneo. Now, please sit back and enjoy a short video introducing Cynthia.
The rainforests of Sabah on the island of Borneo are alive with species found nowhere else.
It is beautiful to feel the sense of belonging here. Not that this land belongs to me, but I belong to this land. You know, this land has seen so much, really. It was coveted by everyone. You know, land is just life.
Outsiders ravaged Sabah. In just 40 years, a third of Borneo's forests vanished, leaving countless species endangered.
It was trauma humans and the land experienced together.
She's a brilliant architect. She creates, she builds.
People around her know her affectionately as Cyclone Cynthia.
Cynthia is powerful, energy is crazy.
Cynthia Ong built coalitions to halt a coal plant, bring renewable power to remote villages, co-found the Sun Bear Conservation Center, and block a destructive bridge that threatened vital habitat.
And someone say, this is so ambitious. I say, well, anything else is not gonna cut it.
Now, the freshest wound. The Pan-Borneo Highway, over 2,000 kilometers across Malaysian Borneo.
Because it's expedient and it doesn't cost the government money. They can just de-gazette a forest, a protected area, prime elephant habitat, and migration routes, and build the highway there. The size of those trees.
Ayo balak.
Tentang Merak Borneo.
Sebenarnya bukan gajah saja di sini ada ini. Pengelin, burung madu pun ada. Itu harimau dahan. Dan ada satu burung yang sangat endemik di Borneo yang ada di sini, yaitu burung merak Borneo. Hutan sebenarnya satu khazanah yang sangat indah bagi kita semua.
On behalf of us humans, I'm apologizing. Oh my God, it's like a graveyard.
Elephants follow ancient routes to their watering holes.
They've kind of dammed this river, so there's definitely going to be conflict.
The community elephant ranger team Cynthia helped establish leads the herds to safety.
It's supposed to be a bridge that goes from here across.
Cynthia proposes routes that connect corridors for wildlife.
And we're going to keep showing up for water, resilience against climate change, habitat for all these various animals. There's still many other phases of the Pan-Borneo Highway, dangerous phases, so we need to continue. We can show certain difficult stakeholders, particularly government, some value. Here we're offering you all our findings, all our data. Can we make different decisions? See, it says the Babagon Dam. You are seeing where 57% of the city's water comes from.
The Babagon Dam, built in the 1990s to supply drinking water to Kota Kinabalu, submerged Kadazan Dusun ancestral land. Families were uprooted to an area with limited farmland, and the deep cultural ties linking 3 neighboring villages were severed.
Kami kehilangan segala-gala macam tanah untuk pertanian dan situlah kami membesar dan bantahan kami tidak didengari.
I apologize and I'm standing with you. First and foremost, that you are acknowledged as stewards of this watershed. They don't get water from this, despite their whole life is sacrificed for the dam, for our water.
Today, Forever Sabah is tending a new path to restore stewardship and rights to the original landowners.
So they hope that being at this table will help to repair some of the past.
We hope and support the entire end-to-end process that you're looking at.
They design a public park with trails and campsites, train rangers, cooks, and guides, opening the way for ecotourism.
Itu yang saya gembira lah sebab sekurang-kurangnya dapat mengubah kehidupan orang kampung.
You know, there was a remembering and honoring. We reignited our sense of belonging.
At Forever Sabah, Cynthia and her team turn lessons from the field into action.
Topography. They would understand a questionnaire better in their tribal language.
My heart sinks with excitement. What will all of this bring?
Particularly what excites me are, those potential avengers, those young folks who are discovering their superpower.
Our approach can be very uncomfortable, can even be alien.
Is it cash? Is it having the...
They are listening to people across Sabah, capturing their hopes, values, and needs, and building the Sabah Holistic Progress Metric. They hope it will help guide policy choices.
We don't want to dynamite this. We don't hate this. This was then. There was a moment when GDP was the right thing and was an important thing. But it's just past itself by date, by a long shot. I'm not anti-GDP. I am pro all the other values that I feel need to be remembered, lest we lose them.
It's not simply a well-being index. This is the wounds of Sabahans. I'm shaking right now because it's so important.
There is a construct from our colonial past, hurt from being part of the formation of Malaysia. We've kind of repeated that history, but it's also crumbling, it's also breaking apart at the seams. And I sense into something new that wants to be born.
I'm grateful and appreciative of everyone here for going there.
Can we heal together? Can we heal the land together?
For outstanding island environmental achievement, the 2025 Seacology Prize is awarded to Cynthia Ong of Malaysian Borneo.
That was really quite inspirational. Oh, if I could have gone on that trip to take that video, that would have been an experience for any one of us to have been there. I would like to now invite any Seacology board members that are present in the audience to please come up. And now Cynthia, also known as, I guess, Cyclone Cynthia, on her best behavior today. Please come forward. On behalf of Seacology, Seacology Prize to you for all the work that you've done in the island of Borneo and some of the other places. And you live here among parts of the United States even. And congratulations on all you've done for that, to inspire all those that work with you and the change that you've made in especially in Borneo. Thank you.
Cynthia Ong has agreed to address us. Please.
Good job, Stefan. You make me look like a very busy person. I'd like to start. Can I move this? I don't want to drop this computer. I'd like to start by calling my ancestors on both mother's and father's sides to be present within me, to honor the ancestors of this land and people, and your ancestors, all of you in the room. Thank you for gathering as a community tonight. It's great to see some old friends that I haven't seen for a while. Thank you to Mary for her warm welcome despite a broken foot. She brought me snacks and it was very nice. To Chris, who's not here, for his characteristic troublemaking. Dwayne and the Seacology team, whom I met today, were great people. And I really do applaud you for, being, as you say, a small team, but doing immense work around the world. I wish there were more organizations like you. I thank you for recognizing our humble
very human and heartfelt work. I had to have some notes here. The work really began with the question, can you help us? That came from Borneo while I was here in the US, and our response to honor that request from folks there. Many, many minor gestures, small, sincere steps, perhaps like yours, conveying that request that we heard, weaving across the Pacific, building little bridges, many little bridges between Sabah and California. That's how it started. So it's a beautiful circling back to come here for this 25 years later. And I think the important thing about building bridges is that both ends build those bridges, not just one end. And this grew into partnership, east-west, north-south, that centered coexistence, making known what can be known of our shared histories, of place and people, and tending to process. We built relationship, generosity, reciprocity, trust. So as I said, it means everything to me to be coming back here 25 years later, to come to be in solidarity with you in this moment. That is really why I came for 3 days. The seemingly heroic journey is possible only with the village. The love, refuge, solidarity, and sometimes sacrifice of family and friends. I had a beloved community here in the US. Even when I thought I was never alone, never homeless, always held. Angela, who's here, Mark, also here, and Eileen, somewhere out there. Others, Tuck, Will, Carol, Chris, Jay, Leah, Marilyn, those who invested in me so I could keep the lights on, Nancy, Caroline, Susan, Dan, Meg, John, many more. I think you all know this. You in Seacology, all the folks that keep the lights on for you. And the dear men from San Quentin, where Angela did many years of work, who were in deep solidarity with us from behind the walls when we fought coal and won. They wrote letters to the Prime Minister of Malaysia. They produced a film. Troy, who is here, was one of them, and he's now a filmmaker. My dearest daughter, Sarah, who at the same time inspired me to be a good steward and had to miss her mother to travel and times apart. I think she sacrificed the most. Of course, a whole beloved team in Sabah. I think there's 70 of us almost. And now the hundreds of communities and organizations we work with, from the local to the global. We work in Sabah, as you saw, northern tip of Borneo Island, about the size of Scotland, if you're trying to get a sense of scale. A place and history, as you saw, with nature-based cultures and economies, fluid movement and trade, sultans, deals and colonization, missionaries and war, trauma and loss, nationhood and patronage politics. This today is the backdrop to a linear, extractive economy, driving social divides, deepening marginalization and separation, emigration and immigration, systemic corruption and patronage development. That's why the mega dams and that's why the highways. Sabah was a part of forming Malaysia in a deal that was not one that Sabahans wanted. And the promises that people make at those kinds of times, and then became the goose that laid the golden egg for Malaysia. So when asking for huge sums of money, they say it's our money. It's all the trees that have been logged. We want them back. So the way to do it, to get the money back, is through mega projects. This is what the government agencies tell us. Why are you trying to stop those flows of money from coming? That is rightly our money. Are you tracking? But we're losing values of community and culture, natural heritage, and ecological vitality, now intensified, of course, by the impacts of climate. So what we're doing, as you saw earlier, facilitating, activating, innovating, and implementing all across sectors the future economy, which is what we call equitable, diversified, regenerative, and circular. Our programs and projects span the hyper-local to the statewide and the regional, working across the arc from prototypes and pilots to policy and systems change, particularly in what we call the messy middle, bridging between the bottom-up of micro-behavior, so a lot of, I think, what you saw in the work that you're doing, and the top-down of macro design, so at the policy levels. Our work continues to be about weaving, but also tending, grieving, repairing, decolonizing the body, the collective body, the earth. It's an intimate conversation and process, often confronting and uncomfortable. Not often, daily. With my British husband, Ken, who some of you know, we included decolonizing in our marriage vows, by the way. We eyeball shame, blame, and guilt, the outsourcing of responsibility, and tend to the pain together, claim bad kin, grieve, take responsibility. It's a daily practice. The climate and nature discourse is colonial. The net zero ambition for decarbonization, when some of us emitted the lion's share and some barely did. And the ones who didn't will suffer the most and won't have the resources to protect themselves. The removing and separation of original peoples from their places of origin and livelihood. That, of course, needless to say, is colonial. I was burning up with this, although some of it results in good work, but mostly my body was burning up. And a Zen Buddhist monk said, "Drop the story." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "How does that feel in your body?" That stopped me dead in my tracks. I've been tending to that. How does coloniality feel in my body? And it's radical, and the story has shifted. So enacting the spirit of solidarity that I came with, I ask you, how does this moment on this land and in the world feel in your body? Can we sit with that together? Hold whatever is coming up. Can we be with pain? and not save, solutionize, rescue, patronize. I have a gift for Mary, Dwayne, and the team. I came here from Plum Village in France, a Zen monastery, and it's a plaque that says, "I have arrived, I am home." It's not from Borneo, so it's not going to fit in with your wall ethno items, but it's a reminder, really, and I hope you'll put it on your wall, about arriving home, each step in the body, on the land, on Mother Earth, and tending to it as home, and caring it for it as home. So lastly, since I started with the ancestors, the collective ancestors keep telling me to repair, tend together to places and ruptures, grieve, cry, sing, drum, pour libation, honor, release, heal our collective bodies and the great web of all life, quoting Joanna Macy, who's now an ancestor. What if this moment, this room, our collective resonance, is the fractal of the future? I'll let you go into discussion groups later. Thank you for this honor. Let's hang in there with each other.
We thank our prize awardee. You're going to have a chance to share dessert with her outside the room. And thank you so much for coming to support the 34th Seacology Prize Ceremony. Grateful that all of you were here. Thank you very much.